To the cloud. We
Oh
are
yeah, you know, Tara, I've got it.
You do have it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that being the case, let me just go back to the TOC then, and then we'll blast through this fast. Because this really is mostly a fine tune and review, anything that anybody's come up with outside the topics. So let's see, I would say that for the most part, I think sections 1 through 7 are good. But if anybody has anything to add, for example, on anything from any of these sections, now is the time to bring it up. Dennis, in your case, I would say if there was anything that you saw in the infrastructure and public works section that needed attention called to it, I can note it here for my later review. Okay.
No, I thought section 4 was perfect.
You flatter me. Joe, I will skip ahead then to section 7, because that's something I have been trying to get some input back from P&Z. And I don't have anything back, and it's okay in a sense, but this is a topic where I think the commission does have the opportunity, and you as chair are sort of in the, well, hot seat's not a good word for it, but at the podium in this moment to add any observations, anything that you think was missed or could be better articulated.
You know what, I did, hold on, sorry.
And I'll skip ahead to the section. So that starts on page 56. Hi, Judy, by the way.
Hi, how are you?
All right, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Everybody like our new logo? Not official yet, not adopted by the Board of Selectmen, but there it is. All right.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I read through it, and I'm looking at my notes, which are mostly responding to information in the section, as opposed to any additions or edits, if that makes sense.
Well, those responses could be interesting to me as well, depending on what they are.
Yeah, so like in 7.2, where in the second paragraph that all the affordable housing units managed by the THA are found in a single age-restricted development. That was, I thought that was an important thing to bring out and to sort of pick apart. Right.
What else you got?
What else do I have?
Karen Durlak did have a general observation, and I think it was mostly related to 7.2 as opposed to the section in general, that she thought it was more subjective than perhaps it should be. And I don't necessarily disagree, but it was a nut that I was having difficulty cracking. And I think her general point, as I understood it, and unfortunately she's not available on Mondays for a while, I think her general point was that it was positing items for which we don't have a history of community support, which is true. It is true that there has been resistance to the idea of affordable housing. But of course, that resistance is also subjective. So
Right.
I don't know. I was definitely trying to make it as objective and fact-based as possible. I am sure that some of my own subjective viewpoint is in here, but I was having a little trouble teasing some of that out. So anybody who's on this call who's got any suggestions or insight here, I certainly don't want the document to be vulnerable to claims of driving an agenda or subjectivity.
Uh-huh. So, so in section 7.2, still in that second paragraph, right, it notes frequently cited concerns are those of the potentially reduced property values or urban levels of density disrupting the overall character of the community. These concerns, however, are rarely borne out by the facts. That may be a tone thing that could be sort of played with.
Okay.
It is objective in itself, but could be read as
I mean, let's be frank. I'm trying to flatten that out because the terms in which those objections are raised are not that polite.
Right.
So I don't really, okay, but that's some phrasing I can look at though, if that stands out. I don't know what else here.
Even here, if you just were to take out that "these concerns" sentence, and then just say like "as shown, however, in this research report," that might help.
Okay, as shown versus calling out concern. It's funny that you remember that webinar I mentioned to the commission a couple weeks ago, that the desegregate community land use workshop. So I attended. I am not kidding you. Probably about half of what they were talking about doing to build economic, or to disrupt economic inequality, I guess is a better way to phrase it, is exactly the stuff that we just put in our zoning code. And that Trulia study that I cite in this section, the guy from Partnership for Strong Communities cited that exact same piece of research. I was laughing the whole time. It was a good thing I was on mute. It's like, oh, we already did it.
I had wanted to attend that. I just couldn't.
It was good. I mean, in a sense, no new information if you've been thinking about it a lot, but definitely sort of ratifying what we've done, right? To say, hey, we've made these choices and it's based on these things, and it's not just stuff that we made up, right? That there are planning professionals all over the state looking at these exact same things, and in many of the same ways. So anyway, that was just a side point, I suppose. What else do you see here that you think might be something we can monkey with, even if it's, again, a matter of tone, communicating the information in a way that is more neutral?
Yeah, I mean, I was overall happy with this section. Um, I thought the action steps were clear and connected to the narrative in this section.
Okay. All right, well, we won't beat that dead horse then. And if anybody does come up with, just, you know, shout it out as always. Scroll ahead. Section 8, I'm actually reasonably happy with. There is the action steps need still to be presented, but we have an EDC meeting on Wednesday, so I hope to finally ferret some action steps out of them at that point. Which moves us to another section where I'm going to be looking to Dennis. So the transportation, Dennis, did you and Charlie and Jeff ever get back together to discuss any of this? I know there was at least some tentative plans to do that.
No, we did not.
Huh. And I guess my question here is just formatting and structural. Which is, you know, we're ending every section with action steps, but we have incorporated those action steps into the discussion of the road safety audit. Let me scroll down here. Bear with me. Okay. So, I mean, aside from a simple thing to do, which would be to peeling it out and putting it in the end, which I can certainly do. You know, this is specific. All this stuff is pretty much specific to the RSA, which means it's not necessarily comprehensive for the entire section on transportation. So, a couple of questions, which is this too much? Well, that's probably not even a good question because you sent back that spreadsheet, which is what this is adapted from. So I'm gonna say that that's probably good the way it is, but to make it more comprehensive for the town as a whole, what is missing? And I think that's also partly a question on what is missing here for complete streets. Because I do feel when it ends here, it kind of ends like a hanging note.
Well, I think you did a great job incorporating the RSA into this and dividing it up into the three categories: short, medium, and long term. So that was a great way to incorporate the RSA into here. And I think you definitely got them in the right categories as far as short and long term, et cetera. And then as far as, and again, complete streets, I mean, you've got the references to the other places where people can go for the whole thing, which I think is good rather than trying to throw it all in here. It's kind of summary of it, and then they can go find them if they're interested. As far as hanging at the end, I didn't get that feeling on my first read through. Let me check on it again. Yeah, I don't really get a hanging feeling. I think that this section is very comprehensive.
Okay, all right. Well, that does provide me with some comfort. So I guess I will I'll monkey around with it a little bit so I can move the items for the RSA here. I might even look at a little more to flesh out that wayfinding bit, since that is a project in progress. All right. Okay. Judy, you're more or less up for the next few sections.
Okay.
And I'm perfectly happy to move through this fast tonight because this is another four meeting night week for me.
Oh, no.
Again, I'm pretty happy with the agriculture section, but in looking through it again, I'm wondering if you had any further thoughts, anything that's out of order, needs to be emphasized, de-emphasized. I mean, you and Carolyn and I spent a lot of time here.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I think that you incorporated everything that we discussed when we met, and I thought it looked pretty good. Other than, the odd edit here and there, missing commas or hyphens or whatever. I thought you captured everything that we talked about. So,
okay. Yeah, I'm
I'm
generally pretty happy with
that farmland soils, because there's an error in the map. Well, not
there's an error in the map.
Some text that shouldn't be there.
Oh.
Down at the bottom right, double click to enter.
Oh.
Enter text.
Well.
I'm like, oops.
I mean, it's an image.
That disappear.
I suppose I could try to figure out if I can strike that through. I don't think I can edit in this image. No, I can't edit in the image.
You could put a text box over it. I do that sometimes.
Yeah, put some dancing cows or something.
There you go. Yeah, I can just redo that.
Is this a map I got from you?
Yeah.
I lose track of where I got which maps.
Yeah, all so right, I can fix that. That's easy enough.
I'll just circle that in my copy of the draft so I know it's something I'm looking for.
Yeah, I was looking through it and I was saying, that's a darn good looking map. And then I said, oh, wait a minute. What's that doing
there? Okay, recreation and trails. What I need is a map here. That was another section I think we spent a lot of time on. It was pretty good. Dennis, were you in on the discussion of trails at all? Was that a part that you wanted to contribute? Any thoughts to?
I think I was in on that discussion, and this section has come a long way from the last time I saw it. I think it addresses the concerns. I did offer at Charlie at one point to, help him out with his map a little bit, put some names and text on it, but then we kind of fell out of touch with each other.
Well, I did add this other map, which I think replaces Charlie's map.
Okay.
Where did I put it? It's in the EDC section. So this was a heat map sent over to me by the guy who organizes those gravel grinders.
Right.
So, and it's a heat map that he created of use of roads for cycling in Thompson. It's a little faint, and I can't seem to get it any clearer, but it does describe it. So it does show the increase in use, and I plopped it in the economic development section because when Richard Fries, the guy from Cyclocross, sent it over to me, he was talking about that as a way to entice businesses, for example, to cater to cyclists and that kind of thing. So I think that fundamentally replaces Charlie's map.
Okay.
It's more legible.
Yeah. Yeah, I looked up that guy after I saw some emails going back and forth. I guess he's pretty famous in the cycling world. So having him in here and his recommendations, this section is great.
He's an awfully nice guy, and he's been very supportive. Well, not for selfless reasons either. He wants to develop his trail racing stuff out here.
Right.
But he's been very generous with his time, and I expect we're going to be seeing a lot more of him too.
Yeah, no, I think the goals are very good. To maintain the trails and all the other things you added in there, improve the access and the parking. Very good.
Yeah, I thought it looked good too.
As long as I am here, what do you know? This is a total side point. What do you know about these TAP grants, Dennis? Have you been involved in any?
No, I've never dealt with that program at all. It's the first I've heard of it, but I will be
Uh-huh.
looking into it.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie mentions it all the time because that's what Pomfret used to fund that bridge and tunnel project for their section of the trail. And it's similar, from what I understand, to the LOTSIP, in that it's sort of managed through the COG, and you sort of have to get in queue on it and that kind of thing. But
I'll see
I
what I
was
can
just
find
curious.
out.
Yeah. All right, Judy, you're up again. Was there anything that occurred back to you on the conservation and open space section that we missed, that you thought could be articulated better since we entered it?
I haven't looked at it since we met, so I'm sure that everything we discussed is in here. Did we make a mention? I think we did, about sort of that perception of open space versus what's actually protected. I think you had that in here.
I certainly made notes
or was
about
I supposed
it,
to send something to you? I know that I need to send you stuff for water resources, and I haven't done that yet.
and Marla is working diligently on doing some additional stuff as well. So I'll bump those two together. Let me see, because I definitely made notes about that perception. But
yeah,
let me,
I thought I remembered seeing it, but now, of course, looking for it, I can't find it. See, inventory of open space.
I don't think I did particularly bring that in. And to me, the value of it, and maybe it's because I wasn't sure where to put it, to me, the value of that was that conversation that you and Carolyn and I had, which is people can look at somebody with, say, a 20-acre parcel, and they've got it mowed, and isn't that beautiful? Isn't that a beautiful field full of open space? But in fact, if it's all lawn, what they've created is a very green desert. And that was the idea we were trying to get around. And I'm not sure where I would have plopped that.
Yeah, I see in challenge.
Maybe here.
In my draft copy, it was in the challenges to conservation section.
Yeah, let me see if I remember that incorrectly, but I think that I do not remember.
Yeah,
that.
I do remember talking about that. Let's see.
And we talked about light pollution. Yeah, it looks like that is not in there. So good catch. I'm glad that you mentioned it. So I'm going back in here and making more notes.
Okay, I'll go through my notes too and see where we tucked it.
Well, it makes sense that it would be challenges to conservation, because that's a perception problem, right? So how do you get past people thinking that mowing their whole property as opposed to balancing that is in fact a conservation effort? Not all open space is conserved space or environmentally valuable lawns. For anybody who's wondering, I am an anti-lawn crusader.
Me too.
I mean, we've got a little right around the house, right? But yeah, our house is essentially a woodlot in a meadow. All right, so that was a good catch. I think that's probably the most important one. We definitely discussed in the actual, I thought we did, but maybe not. Well, just alternatives to lawns gets referenced here. So if I pull in the idea of having lawn alternatives and flesh that out a little further, that's best.
Right,
that's
yeah, we need We're back to something, doesn't it?
Of lawn alternatives. Okay. So water resources is, if you'll pardon the pun, very fluid right now. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. Marla did come in today. She is doing some work particularly to fix this section forward that George had written, which, you know, as she correctly points out, you know, this is essentially referencing stuff that's in statutes, which is probably better handled by referring to the statutes. Mm-hmm. And she was going to, you know, just do some more fact checking here. But you said you had something else too, Judy?
I told you when we met that I would put something together. We kind of realized that we were really focusing on wetlands and ignoring other water resources. So I said that I would put something together, and I just haven't yet, but I will.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you, specific to this section, especially since you were such a big part of its development, that French River watershed plan that I do have,
yes,
which I do reference in the action steps, but I do it I think I do it in kind of a shallow way. I guess part of what I would ask you to do is take a look at all of those proposed actions, because, you know, it's multiple pages.
Yeah,
and
I did see that it included that.
Yeah, and tease out the most important ones. Although I think I have since discovered one that is super important on my own, which is to develop a watershed committee, or however it got phrased in there. Because I was back in touch with Eric Thomas about those non-point source grant, you know the ones I mean.
The 319 grant, yeah.
The 319, thank you. The 319 grants. Because I was trying to sniff around about the salt shed again, and Eric's response to me was pretty much, "Did you form a watershed, commission yet?" And I'm like, well, no. With the implication that nothing's going anywhere unless that's done.
Yeah. I saw that comment in his email, and I had two thoughts about it. And one was, Thompson Together, although it's a town-wide organization, has always had a bit of an emphasis on the French River. And I wondered if that would be something that they would take on. And the second thing was the former Knights of Columbus, who were calling themselves the stewards of the French River. Are you still there? Did I drop off?
No, you're here. You're here.
Oh, okay. All right. The little window with all the participants.
Oh, you know what? I think I just lost.
Oh, did you close that? Okay. All right.
No, I didn't close it, but I have a feeling that I just lost my internet connection because I noticed that you guys disappeared. So I'm still on the phone.
Okay. Oh, all right.
So bear with me, and I'll try to reopen the window.
Okay. Well, I can still see you're still displaying, so I can still see your screen. It's just that the window with the participants disappeared.
Well, that's weird. All right.
Says
so
I'm seeing your screen. So
isn't that weird? I wonder if there's a limit to how long you can have that up. All right, I'm going to try to screen share again then.
Anywho, yeah, so that was my other thought, was that I wondered, they call themselves the stewards of the French River, and I wonder if they even know that there's a plan, for the river that they claim to be stewards for. So two potential groups maybe that could kind of form the kernel of a watershed group if they wanted to.
Well, that building's been sold.
I'm sad about that, but I recognize the difficulties many businesses are having with COVID. sadly.
Yeah, and as you point out, it's not like that group was actually acting, as far as anybody knows, in any stewardship capacity. So if it's a business that will at least take care of the immediate upkeep and drive some economics, then I'm perfectly happy about it. I mean, are you aware of that group ever having actually done anything over there?
I'm not. And yeah. So, which is why I kind of laugh when I say they have called themselves this, and it's in their name, Stewards of the French River, but I'm not aware of any actions they've ever taken. So.
Yeah, so they probably just wanted to get a non-for-profit status, because that place was being run as a non-profit, I think.
Oh, really?
I just turned it on. I turned me on.
So.
Okay.
So anyway,
so anything,
yeah. I'll work on that stuff that I promised you, and get it to you as quickly as I can.
All right. I'm going to try one more time to screen share because it's being weird. Let me know when you see it.
I see it.
Okay, it is up. Okay.
Yeah. Does everyone else see it?
I've lost you guys on my participant bar. Joe, Dennis, do you guys have this?
Can you go back? Can you go back to that last section for 1 second? I just wanted to mention that on the 319 grants, Brooklyn got one of those a few years back, and Janet worked extensively with them on a watershed plan, and they actually built some drainage down there to kind of handle a whole watershed instead of doing it on a property by property basis. So if that ever goes anywhere, she could be a good resource for the 319 stuff.
Excellent. Yeah, I had when that came through. I mean, just for whatever source, for the sake of conversation, I had emailed Eric Thomas and copied, I think, Judy and Marla, just to say, well, to find out, first of all about the salt shed, but also emailing Judy and Marla and Rich separately to see if they had any target projects that would fit within the scope. Even if we can't move forward with that other. But then Eric replied to me and said, hey, without a watershed implementation committee, you're not getting anything, essentially. I mean, that was read between the lines.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that that's exactly what he was saying. The district does have a grant for the French River to do a project, a project with a couple of different implementations. That we haven't moved forward yet. So it's been approved. We just haven't developed the contract yet and started it. So usually they're a little hesitant to, well, at least for the district, they probably wouldn't give us another grant to do a project because we haven't started the one that we already have. But that's not to say that they wouldn't award money to the town or another organization to do it.
Yeah, so I might add as an action item in there to try to develop a project that is consistent with the 319 grant program. I mean, I feel like there's probably work to be done out there, and I just don't necessarily have the tools to identify it myself. All right, moving on. And Joe Perotti, you are back up. And then after that, we can probably call this a wrap for tonight. This is the last section that we worked on, education, which was a good discussion, as they always are. Really took a lot of information in from Melinda and Kathleen Herbert and the two Joes, Perotti and Iamartino. So wherever you see this highlighted, this is where I'm actively looking for more information at this point. This I really need from Joe Perotti, not Joe Perotti, Joe Iamartino to confirm the history. Joe, Perotti, what's your feeling about this statement on Marianapolis? It does kind of read like a promotional brochure to me.
Yeah. I did think that part of it was a little odd. you know, I don't think there's anything factually wrong with it. But yeah, I thought the tone seemed a little off.
I'm gonna hazard a guess that Joe sent his kids to Marianapolis and that he's a fan.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably starting. Very convenient for him, right up the street. Starting with that sentence, Marianapolis boasts a 7-to-1 student. You could probably just eliminate everything from there on out and just stick with those first 4 lines.
Yeah, I mean, part of the conversation that was very interesting to me, and it was late in the session, and this is part of what I had asked Dr. Perotti Brown to sort of brainstorm on a little bit. Look, I'll come flat out and say I have mixed feelings about private education in general. I think that there is not inconsiderable evidence that the existence of so much private education in the United States of America is a contributing factor to disparate education results based on income. And that's having nothing to do with whether the institution is good or not, whether people mean well, don't mean well, sending their kids there. I think that there are philosophical problems with it, which is not to say that I want to ignore or disparage in any way any given institution. But if we are going to accept that these disparities exist and are partly fueled by the presence of private institutions where the wealthy and highly motivated can peel their kids away from the public school system, how do we get those schools back integrated into the community in some way? So that's what I had asked Joe to brainstorm on. What can we suggest to Marianapolis to become more a part of Thompson, the town? So I don't know if you've had a chance to give that any thought, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to need more time, but I have given it some thought for sure.
How about your initial thoughts, just for my own giggles?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I haven't really been able to articulate them yet. It's been sort of like stewing. So I don't know if I've got anything yet.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't have anything either, which is why I'm putting you on the hot spot.
Yeah. Do the students, so I don't know anything about Marianapolis. Do the students have any opportunities to volunteer in town? Or, I mean, it seems like we do have some, they could maybe volunteer with Teague or volunteer at the senior center or volunteer at one of the senior housing facilities. So, but I don't know, has there ever been an effort to set something up like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've definitely partnered with Teague throughout the entire time I've been here. And, other more sporadic occasions, we've taken the opportunity to work on town initiatives.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I know that they partnered with the Conservation District 2 years ago to put in a rain garden. So, but that's about the extent of my partnership with them. So.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about something even more basic in that, which is, to me, although it's great that the kids do go out and work on specific volunteer projects. I mean, they were very helpful to the garden. They were very helpful to cemeteries last year. That is not getting those kids interacting in a real life setting with members of the community or their peers in the public system. And that's the barrier that I think breaks the boundary between privileged and unprivileged. Right? Is because if they're coming in, if they're swooping in to do good works, that's fantastic. But that to me is, and you know, I'll speak in sort of blunt terms, that's like white savior complex. Right? That's like saying these kids are going to come solve a problem for this town. What I'm talking about is way more basic, which is that these kids are just part of the town. Now, so there's some obstacle to that in that there's no like hangouts on Thompson Hill, right? There's no cafes, there's no record stores, there's no blah. So in absence of that, what's a mechanism that we can imagine to work towards? Because it's not going to happen tomorrow. It may not happen ever. But if we have it as something that we can imagine, then maybe we can put some of those pieces in place.
Yeah. Does Thompson Rec ever reach out to Marianapolis and include those students in recreation programs that are geared towards the school age kids? Or is it really just looking at the public school?
I think Thompson Rec mostly serves public school students, and I think in all functionality, they're mostly serving underprivileged because the programs are inexpensive compared to private programs.
Right. But I mean, if they're supposed to be town-wide programs, you would think that they would include Marianapolis as well.
Yeah, I don't think they exclude Marianapolis.
Right. It's probably just
in
an
design. I think that's just the way it functions. Yeah.
Right.
But that's a good note. So I made a little note here. Thompson Rec could be the catalyst. Yeah. And then a lot of this stuff, again, this is sort of where we left it. Melinda has said she will get me more, but you know, these are bullet points from the Board of Ed's public statements. Each one of these has still prompted a question that remains unanswered to me. I would certainly, Joe, take, you know, as an educator, I would take your perspectives on these, even if they are not specific to the Thompson Public Schools. I think that you are probably able to at least partially answer these questions just as an educator. You know, what does dedicated leadership look like in education? I don't know. I haven't been in an educational environment in quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I think right. So, yeah.
You know, and it's certainly possible, and I would say probably even likely, that no matter what you would be giving me or providing me as, you know, potential answers to these questions, they're going to be bumped up against whatever I receive from the superintendent of schools. That is good and proper. But to give me a framework just to think about what those things look like is helpful. Because, you know, we're out of my realm here with education. I am more than just a lay person. I'm completely detached from education. I don't have kids in the school system anywhere. I haven't been in a school system for, you know, 30 some years. And the school system I was in was peculiar in that it was a public school that was still an expression of privilege. You know, so I don't know what and education and thinking about education has changed in a lot of ways since I was a public school student. So I don't know what these things look like really.
And I'm sorry, these are, again, this is the board and the office's vision statement. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all up here, right? This is what Kathleen sent me, specific to the board. And her text essentially starts with the vision statement, mission statement, and then these bullet points. So this intro is what?
I mean, a lot of it is just like educational jargon plug and play, right? I mean, you can find, I think this is sounding more critical than I mean it to be.
I know what you're saying, though. I can totally hear what you're saying, that you can probably, you can probably see some form of these statements in every Board of Education's mission statement across the country. Yes.
Exactly. So I think that determining what this means specifically for Thompson education is really important.
And I would agree with that. I'm going to keep pressing you on this, though, Joe, which is that you still have a perspective as an educator as to what that would mean.
Yeah. So, so like hiring and retaining engaged, enthusiastic, focused, and professional staff. I think you're asking all the right questions, right? I think, I think looking at this section, this has got to be, of course, teaching faculty. It's also got to be paraprofessionals for, students with identified need. It's got to be administrative and clerical staff. It's got to be, to the kitchen and the custodial staff as well, right? So I think obviously an educational plan is going to put focus on some of those more than others, but they're all essential to the school. I think, like, especially as I said, looking at and hearing some of the numbers the superintendent was talking about last week, the additional support service for students with IEPs and 504 plans is particularly critical. State-of-the-art instruction. I mean, I think this ties into like 21st century learning goals in terms of employment of technology and then also the skills that go along with that. To your point, state-of-the-art is I mean, what does that mean? I mean, I think it looks different in Turtle Lot than it does in Marionopolis, right? And state-of-the-art is going to be necessarily tied to resources as well. Community involvement and support. I think that's the parent community, as well as some of these ways we're even talking about. How do we connect Marionopolis to the town? How do we connect the town to the school? Right? How do we get the towns invested in the town invested in the school? So that it becomes something they care about and I mean, essentially something they're willing to fund.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm helping at all or not.
Well, yeah, you are, and I will probably stop hammering on you on this shortly, because I am actually expecting Melinda to turn some more stuff around to me. I mean, she really fleshed out a lot more than Kathleen did. And then, since that time, this is much more text oriented than it was when we went into it last week.
Right.
I'm going to monkey around with this 14.6. I'm probably just going to eliminate this heading and, just start with description of these projects. Melinda and I are actually working on a walking school bus grant or pilot program, even as we speak, that'll be in by the end of the week. And I think we probably have a high chance of award there. So, that's a thing that I can actually talk about, because it's talking about active transport. So I'm back in my I'm back more in my comfort area. You know, same thing here in terms of farm to table stuff. This is more my comfort area. But I mean, surely you have all figured out by now that I want these statements all to mean something, right? So that when we sign off on this for the next 10 years, when we look back at it, we can go, that's what we meant. We're either succeeding or failing at achieving these goals that we've set for ourselves. Because, you know, I can't tell you how we would achieve or not achieve this, embracing our differences. I have no idea what that means. I have absolutely no idea what that means in this context. If you can't tell me how you're going to actively seek to embrace differences, then this statement may as well not exist. You know, saying a safe and caring environment that fosters lifelong learning. I do not know what this means unless you tell me what safe and caring looks like and what a love of lifelong learning looks like. How do you get that? I mean, I can tell you, you don't get it by teaching to the test. So what, in addition to teaching to the test, what are the pieces that you're going to do to make this a priority? But that's probably something for me and Melinda. Okay, anybody, anything else? Because I think that this is probably enough for tonight. I just like to revisit the whole thing, you know, every once in a while so that we have a chance to find things we've missed. But I think in general, it is pretty good. Going once. Going twice.
Sounds good to me. Looks good to me.
Okay. So I don't think anybody of the three people who dialed in tonight are supposed to be involved in the library services topic, which is scheduled for Thursday. I have not been able to connect with Allison on that. That might get canceled and the section might get scrubbed. We will see. But then after that, I've got renewable energy up. Dennis, are you a part of that one?
I don't think so.
Would you like to be? Is that a topic of interest to you?
If you need someone on the committee, sure.
Well, I always like people who can actually speak in real terms. You know, the way I think about these things is not in engineering terms. It's in do we want this in general? Why do we want it? How do we make it appealing? But, you know, there are real world obstacles that I can't necessarily identify. Even laws and codes, aside from the ones that we wrote, that, you know, aren't going to be top of mind for me. So it would certainly be, oh, I do have you on that one.
Okay.
For next Tuesday, the 24th.
Next Tuesday, the 24th. Okay.
Yeah, I've got Dennis, Jeff Bolte, Joey Martino, Joe Perotti Brown, and myself. And Joe, we're gonna talk about that at least briefly at the P&Z meeting on Monday. Alvin, Lenke, and Santos in particular, I would like from the commission to join that, but obviously anybody from the commission is more than welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I have you written down for the 24th, so I guess I did volunteer. I can probably say some stuff about solar there. I could give a couple of goals under solar, maybe.
Okay, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Yes, Judy?
Okay. Oh, I was just going to say, I might have a few things to add on solar. I don't necessarily need to be involved in the whole thing, but.
Okay, well, I mean, everybody gets included on the weekly email anyway, but I'll put you on the 2 line. How's that?
Okay.
And that's for next Tuesday, the 24th.
I'll be there.
Very good. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks, Tara.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Right.